Thank you, and thank you all for staying. It's very nice to see all these friendly faces. Actually, about being nervous, I used to sing in a band. So my fun fact, I sang in a band. My husband was the guitarist. He's now CFO, and I could do that for thousands of people. And I was like 1% nervous to my 100% now. I don't know why. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you today about Indeed eliminating or reducing bias by using technology. But first of all, I wanted to thank the HBA. I'm a huge supporter of the HBA. I love what they're doing, and I think it's so impressive over the last, at least for my visibility for the last 5 to 6 years, that every year the summit gets better. Every year it's impressive and it's strong, and I'm very thankful to be here today. I'm also very grateful to Jane and Diana. That today, I learned a lot this morning. I got mad and yelled at someone on stage this morning. I laughed with you and talked, but I was also touched by both Jane and Diana's speech earlier this afternoon. How wonderful it is that we have such strong, powerful women that are willing to be vulnerable and are willing to share what was challenging to get here. So thank you for that too. So on to my story. So the mini-me phenomenon. Anyone have ever heard of that? No. But I'm going to teach you something. And the main question I actually want to talk about today is, can we utilize technology to tackle those biases we have? Oh God, don't ever let your marketing person create your presentation. You get this big picture of yourself. So bias in myself, I thought, let me explain to you why I believe I'm actually capable to talk about bias. I work in the farm industry. I'm an American. I'm female. I'm an entrepreneur and a mom, so you can imagine the discussions I've had about who is raising my children. And I have also and am also a recruiter. So I get biased against a whole hell of a lot. But I also believe, and I also am 100% convinced that bias has helped me in a lot of ways and helps all of us today. So there's actually a very good thing about bias. So the mini-me phenomenon is actually a phenomenon that is based on the affinity bias. It means that we are more comfortable with the things we recognize, people that look the same as we do, people that sound the same as we do, and it makes us feel more comfortable and confident in our decisions. And that's why we see so many people hiring their mini-me's throughout the chains of organizations. Why women, when they get in higher powers, also do hire more women, also because of this phenomenon. So it's a good thing too, right? The effect is actually a really big problem. So this was a slide that Sabina showed earlier, and it could be John, it could be William, but in principle, if you look at the name of the list that was all there, they were all Anglo-Saxon male names. We actually camp with the problem that people change their names on CVs because they're just less likely to be invited for interview because their name is not Anglo-Saxon. It's a big problem. And because we need to change this 4, 5, 10%, depending on which part of the world you are actually looking at, we want to do something about it. So, bias is a good thing. Bias should not be a curse word. Bias should not be something we're trying to eliminate completely. Bias saves us in a lot of ways. That gut feeling why we think, I don't know if I should trust you, I don't know if I should get in your car, I don't know if I should walk down that alleyway. That is also some of the information that's stored in our bias. Our bias works and stores information and experiences and allows us to automate the amount of information that comes into our head. We get so much information every day. It is getting more and more every day. We are the best automators in our own heads, and we have to be, and we need this bias to do it. So please don't ever let anyone tell you that bias is a bad thing, because it actually is a good thing. The problem with bias in the hiring process and what is actually leading us to behaviors that are not what we want them to be is that we want actually consciously, because I know it's not a thing that men don't want women to be ahead. It's not that we don't believe that diversity is a strong thing. The facts that we talked about yesterday in the World Cafe, they're all in the conscious mind. But it's our subconscious mind that makes these decisions. It's the unconscious reaction that we have to pink clothing or blue clothing, or to who should be a nurse, another huge societal really big problem. I don't think we realize the enormity of that problem, and it's not something that we're ever going to fix. Here in this room, we need to fix it also in our subconscious and unconscious. A really, really hard thing to do. So, bias in recruitment and hiring, because I said bias is a big thing, we use it every day. You are now using your bias looking and listening to me, making assumptions and decisions. But we also use it in recruitment and hiring. So what does it do? It actually influences the entire range of hiring. It is not just about the external CVs and people that come in for interview. It is also internally in promotion. It is also in the employer branding that we see our companies build. It is everywhere, right? So it is throughout the whole piece, we have bias in recruitment and hiring. There are many, many different bias types, and so many that I can't even start to explain all of them. And I know we're a little bit out of time, so I'm going to speed up so we have the last one too. I'm going to talk about a few. Status bias. People stay to see Jane, not just because she's amazing and impressive and lovely to listen to. There's a status, and that's a good thing. We like that, we need that. We go to certain things and we want to see and meet certain people because they have a status. This is a good thing. It also does influence our behavior. Beauty bias. Anyone here that people who are more beautiful actually are earning more money, are more successful? We have a beauty bias. We do. And we have multiple other biases that we actually use. And our subconscious, we just can't turn it off. It's not something you can decide. So we're not going to say, okay, I'm not biased. Anyone who tells you they're not biased, they don't understand bias. Because you cannot not be biased. You have to be. So is there a way to use conscious thoughts to train your subconscious bias? Because your subconscious doesn't have an opinion. It's storing information and experiences, and it confirms whatever bias that is you're looking for. So if I always experience that men about 60 years old who are in positions of power always speak to me condescendingly, and I always must be defensive for that, I will find every 60-year-old man that does that to me and every time confirm that that's the case and that's what they all do. Because that's my bias. But if I use, in this case I'm talking about technology, but I can also do it a different way. I can look for every 60-year-old man that listens, that wants to hear me, that I let them hear me, and I will train my bias differently. So I can teach my subconscious to behave in a certain way. And if we think about that in the hiring process, and we think about that in terms of gender equality, and I'm really trying never again to say diversity after this morning. And if we use that, how are we going to train within our companies this subconscious bias that we do not even realize? How are we going to train that? Is there a way we can help people experience that the alternative is actually true to what their initial bias is? So we just I always get distracted when formatting is different. So what my premise is that when you are a company and you are looking to change and to influence the subconscious bias, the hiring biases, it's very important to sit in the chair of the people who are looking for jobs within your company. It's not just the people externally in the website, it's also the people within your company. Sit in their chair and think about, if I wanted my next job, and I didn't have a mentor, and I wanted to look around, most people, or first thing they're doing is responding to external job adverts because they don't know where to go internally, or it's uncomfortable to do so. So first thing is to focus on the candidate experience. Secondly, if you really want to influence those biases, and influence who is hiring and influence who is applying, you need to de-bias text and images. So there is great technology, and I'll show you some of those. That's a very simple way to make sure that your adverts, the text on your website, are not female or male oriented, or they are if you want to skew a certain applicant population. These are things that do not cost big change within your organization. They're things that are fairly simple to apply. Yesterday, during the World Cafe, someone from KPMG they've done this, and they saw a major increase in the amount of female applications and diverse applications in their jobs the moment they changed their standard job descriptions to be neutral and diverse friendly. Blind CV selection, everyone recognize what I mean by that. So I get 10 CVs to review and decide who I'm going to interview. I may not see a name because it will influence my bias. I will not see a gender, it will influence my bias. Not a date of birth, it will influence my bias. And you can take that very far. There's been orchestras in the 1980s, 90s, that started doing fully blind auditions, and they saw an increase from about 20 to 52% women in the orchestra. They were hired without ever seeing whether they were male or female. That's not for us feasible. We need actually to see the energy of someone. How do they lead within an organization? We can't have them interview behind a sheet. But we can make that process up until the point when they start interviewing, make that blind, and see what happens to the diversity of the population of the candidates being interviewed. There's different modeling and algorithm matching that can be done. So you have really cool technology out there, which I'll show you in a moment, that actually uses regressive analysis and other language tools, simple tools, to actually map, is a person going to fit in this culture? Do they fit in this role within my company? And it's a data-oriented way to test and assess people. It reduces that bias because we're not allowing ourselves as humans to decide in an interview, are you the right fit, yes or no? And I turned it off. How did I do that? Okay, so de-biasing text and images. So yes, I am a startup, so I do plug, because there's a sense of desperation in there as well sometimes. So Textio is another one of the really cool websites and companies out there that offer as a service to neutralize your different online text and make sure that you are not only attracting male or female candidates. Zocket as a company, so that is my company, part of our process is actually to do an assessment of a company's online candidate experience and identify where there's diversity issues. Actually, in the back of your program book, we've done an offer for today only, is the people who are here, if you would like to have an assessment of the, attractiveness of your online candidate experience to diverse candidates, you can book that with us for free because you were here, so yay, you stayed. Talent Sonar, it's a little bit more, they do also blind candidate screening, but these are at least three of the many different technologies that are out there that do not actually get in the way of your current organizational processes that can help fix some of the things that we are doing to perpetuate the behaviors that are influenced by our bias. I did it again. So we've seen that 5 times more female applicants are found when there's blind applications. Some of that has to do with the fact that I know as a recruiter, and I don't do that now anymore as much, but in the past, is that most of the female candidates that I've spoken to, I had to convince them that they would be able to do the job. The men I had to convince that this was a great company, and the women I had to convince that they were okay enough for it. So the blind application process also stimulates someone to try, because they will not be treated in a way that they don't want to be. And we see it in the data. It really is happening. So the blind resume review, as I was talking about, so Zocket that's part of the platform because we believe that it's a real necessity. Limbio.io does the exact same thing. It allows, so what happens actually is you send the CVs from your database, they go through an entire blind screening, hiring managers read the CVs, and they decide without knowing anything about the candidate whether they should be, or whether they should be biased, I'd say, they should be interviewed. So bias in selection and matching. I don't know if anyone's heard of any of these. Seedlink, NAC. So you have NAC and Arctic Shores are all about gamification. So we all use our mobile phones. The younger generations coming into our industry are all way more mobile savvy anyway. And you play games in order to do personality testing. And you have matched that against your current population. And with NAC or Arctic Shores, you attract a different population and you match by letting people play games. And it's just fun. It's also fun to think, how would that work in the future? So right now, I would say that 98% of all companies demand the candidate does all of the work to apply for a job. And if you think that 8 years from now, my expectation is that that's going to be a lot different. Because we have a shortage. We have a younger generation. We have a generation demanding more from their employers. So there is also, on the slide before, Blendor is actually a site that switches that around. As a candidate, you upload all the information, and companies have to apply to you. And yesterday, someone suggested hiring managers should actually be interviewed by candidates, and there's a competition between hiring managers to get the best talent in. So NAC and Arctic Shores are all about reducing that bias by playing a game. Data comes out about how you tackle problems. Game playing is nothing than problem solving. And these two programs actually map that to personality characteristics and to how you solve problems, map that to your current population, and then say, yep, there's a match there based on the data. After that, you get the look, the smell, the feel, the energy, the touch. Is this the right match? But before that, you do it on the basis of technology. Seedlink is another really interesting one. It's actually also a Dutch company. They do regressive analysis of language. Actually, you answer 3 different questions, and based on the words that you use, they can, with a very high predictive analysis, tell you whether that this person is going to match your function in your company, your culture of your company. And it allows you, and it allows a candidate to say, actually, I don't think I'll fit there because it's not the gender difference, it's the way that we behave. And that's why we feel comfortable, yes or no, with a new employer. Ooh. So I think there's a lot of room to implement HR technology in order to reduce that bias, in order to change the gender equality paradigm and the diversity issues that we face. Because I do believe that we want to find a better and an easier way to reach our bottom lines and our business goals and our financial targets. And just because it's way much more fun to work in companies where people have different opinions and you can go, why do you want to do it that way? It's just more fun. It's more fun than just everyone doing kowtowing. That's not my personality anyway, but it's also much more fun to do. So we are, just as a last plug, we are actually looking for a few companies to do a co-development program with to see how it works within their company by making the candidate experience the most important thing. So if you are interested or you want us to do an assessment of the way that your candidate experience affects a diverse applicant pool, please do get in touch with us. Thank you very much for your time.